وأصلي وأسلم على رسول الله وعلى آله وأصحابه ومن اتبعه بإحسان إلى يوم الدين. اللهم أرنا الحق حقا وارزقنا اتباعه والباطل باطلا وارزقنا اجتنابه ولا تجعله ملتبسا علينا فنضل. سبحانك لا علم لنا إلا ما علمتنا إنك أنت العليم الحكيم. We ask Allah to bless us with beneficial knowledge and practice of said knowledge, and to increase us in knowledge and in practice. So remember, we're renewing our intention so that we're learning for Allah and for Allah alone, subhanahu wa ta'ala. And we're learning so that we can know, basically, so we're not ignorant. And we're also learning so that we can practice what we learn. And we're also learning so that hopefully we can teach as well. And we can practice patience, benefit ourselves, benefit others, practice what we learn, right? Be active members of society, inshallah ta'ala. And there's a lot of reward, a lot of ajr in learning, because when you learn, the Prophet ﷺ said that one knowledgeable person that practices is tougher for the shaitan to deceive than 1,000 regular people who are worshippers. So one person who has knowledge and is practicing is tougher for the shaitan to deceive than 1,000 people who are worshippers. That make sense? Fine. Zakat of the cattle. So the cattle, as we said, is camels, cows, and sheep or lamb. And cows also refers to buffaloes, bisons. Sheep or lamb also refers to goat. And they're called cattle, or they're called bahimatul an'am because they don't speak. Bahimatul an'am, bahima because they don't speak. Right. All right. So a couple of things that we have to consider. You have to consider full ownership of the cattle. You also have to consider an amount of animals that you own. And you have to consider the amount of time you've owned them. So remember we talked about amount of time owning gold and silver is how long? A full lunar year, right? Likewise with the cattle. So with the nisab, the prescribed amount, you have to own the prescribed amount or more for a full lunar year. So if during that lunar year it decreases from the prescribed amount, then the lunar year restarts once you own the prescribed amount again. So say for example the prescribed amount is $600 for silver, right? So you own $600, you have $600 sitting in the bank that you don't touch for 5 months. And then you have to use it, right? So those 5 months are not counted. You start counting again once you have $600 again. Clear? Nice. So the prescribed amount is different depending on the type of animal. So for camels, it is 5 camels. You can write that down. For camels, it is at least 5 camels. So you would need to own 5 camels for a full lunar year. Or more. 5 camels or more. For camels, it's at least 5 camels. For cows, it is 30 cows, sorry, not 20. For cows is 30 cows. Any less than 30 cows, you don't have to pay zakat. Cows is 30 cows. For sheep or lamb, it is 40 lamb. So 5, 30, 40. 5 for camels, 30 for cows, and 40 for lamb. And you have to have ownership of this amount for a full lunar year. This amount or more. And the third, requirement for you to have to pay zakat is that these animals, right, they eat from the land. And eating from the land means that it's not grass that you planted. It's not hay that you purchased. Right? It's just grass. Okay? So basically they're eating off of Allah's provisions. Right? The provision that has been given to them in the land. You don't have to buy hay. You're not putting down seed. You're not doing anything so that grass can grow, and they're eating from that grass. That's called sa'ima. So the first is that it has to reach the prescribed amount. 5 for camels, 30 for cows, 40 for sheep. Second is you have to own it for a full year, lunar year. And third, it has to be sa'ima. Sa'ima. Whereas it eats from the land, not that you buy it hay or whatnot. And the fourth is that it is not used for carrying things, or it's not used for work in the farm. Right? So, for example, some of the cows they use to drag, I think it's called, what's it called? Yeah, that's the English word for it. The what?
Raking.
I didn't hear you.
Raking.
Raking? Yeah, something like that. So that one is not counted. It is only counted if these animals you have are used for just growth, right? You get milk, you use its wool, right? You use it for breeding, right? You use it for eating, these things. If you're using them for business, like you buy and sell, then that falls under the category of urud al-tijara, business commodities, not cattle. Is that clear? So if you're buying and selling them, you're using them for business, then that falls under the business commodities category, not here. Any questions so far? Sorry. All right, so when do you have to give zakat on the cattle? Number one, if you have the prescribed amount, which is 5 camels for a lunar year, or 30 cows, or 40 lamb. And that also includes goat. So that's the first requirement. The second requirement is you have it for an entire full lunar year. The third requirement is it's sa'ima. Right? Sa'ima means it eats from the grass, from the land. It roams and eats from the land. And the fourth is it's not used for work. Right? For carrying, for dragging, it's not used for work. Like, all right. So how much do we have to give for camels first of all? So if you have 5 camels, if you have between 5 and 9, so 5 or 6 or 7 or 8 or 9 camels, and you've owned them, you've owned 5 or 6 or 7, so 5 through 9, you've owned them for a full lunar year, then you have to give in zakah a sheep. 1 sheep. Okay. And this sheep is either 1 year old or 2 years old. A year-old lamb or 2-year-old lamb. You don't own lambs, then you give away its equivalent in money. Okay? So for 5 to 9, it's what? 1 sheep. 10 through 14, 2 sheep. Okay? 10 through 14, 2 sheep. 15 through 19, 3 sheep. 15 through 19, 3 sheep. 20 through 24, 4 sheep. 25 through 35, now it's a 10 difference. 25 through 35, it is a year-old female camel. A year-old female camel. So now you have between 25 and 35, you give away 1. A year-old female camel or a 2-year-old male camel. One or the other. Okay? Year-old or more, not 2 years old. 2 years old or more, not 3. Alright? That's between 25 and 35. Between 36 and 45, 2-year-old female camel. You guys follow? It's a lot of numbers. I know. You need to have a what's it called? A graph or a chart, so you can see. So 5 to 9, 1 sheep. 10 to 14, 2 sheep. 15 to 19, 3 sheep. 20 through 24, 4 sheep. Right? Yeah? 25 through 35, a 1-year-old female camel or 2-year-old male camel. Okay. 36 to 45, 2-year-old female camel. 46 to 60, which is 15. Right? It's a 3-year-old female camel. It's called the hiqqa. 3-year-old female camel. 61 to 75, a 4-year-old camel. 76 to 90, 2 2-year-old female camels. 91 to 120, 2 3-year-old female camels. Above 120, so if a person has 120 camels or more, then every 40 camels, he gives a 2-year-old female camel. And every 50, it is 1 3-year-old camel. So say for example, a person has 150, right? 150 camels, what does he do? He gives away 3 3-year-old female camels. 3 3-year-old female camels. And the reason we're saying female in most of these instances is because the female can have more babies. It's more beneficial to give away a female than it is to give away a male. Okay? In most instances, it's more beneficial to give away a female than it is to give away a male. And what we're trying to do here is we're trying to give the poor people a chance to have in the future, to no longer be poor, to come out of poverty. Right? That's one of the wisdoms of zakat, is that you want the poor people to come out of poverty. And I guess I can send a chart on the WhatsApp group, inshallah. As for the cows, we said how many do you need to have before zakat is obligatory? 30. Right, 30. So for 30 cows, you give away 1-year-old cow. One-year-old cow. Between 30 and 39. 40 to 59, you give 1-2-year-old cow. And it's called musinna because now it has teeth. 1-2-year-old cow. Between 60 and 69, you give away 2 1-year-old cows. Between 70 and 79, you give away 1 1-year-old and 1 2-year-old. 1 1-year-old and 1 2-year-old. If it's more than 70 or more than 80, then every 30 you give away 1-year-old, and every 40 you give away 1 2-year-old. Every 30, 1 1-year-old. Every 40, 1 2-year-old. So for example, a person has 120. He either gives away 4 1-year-olds or 3 2-year-olds. Any questions? A little confusing? Female, yeah.
Do you think there's a way I can like put on a TV over there, maybe like search it on the
I'll send a chart. It's easy. We're almost done. We have the sheep now. That's left. As for the sheep, then every 40, between 40 and 120 lamb, you give away 1 sheep. If you have less than 40, you don't have to. 40 and 120, between those numbers, 1 sheep. 120 to 200, 2. 201 to 300, 3. If it's more than that, every 100 you give away 1. So 40 to 120, 1. 120 to 200, 2. 100 and 201 to 300, 3. Beyond that, if you have 400, that means you have to give away 4 sheep. 500, you give away 5. وهكذا. Any questions? Simple, right? Simple math. Yes, my friend.
If you had like 350, you run up or down?
So how many hundreds do you have?
350 to 300.
You have 3 hundreds,
Okay.
right? So you count the hundreds. The 50, you don't count. Clear? Mm-hmm.
just to confirm, so when we're talking about giving away over here, as you mentioned, it's like they give the cattle to like a poorer farmer or poorer whoever like raises the animals. They're not like killing them and giving them like off like that. It's just giving it to like someone else poor.
So with zakah, the same type of wealth that you have to give zakah for, that is what you're giving the poor. You're not doing anything to it. Okay? You have sheep, you give sheep. You have money, you transfer money. You don't buy a car for them and give them the car and say, oh, I gave my zakat. No, you did not give your zakat. You bought something for the poor person, you gave it to that poor person. That is not sufficient for zakat. What's sufficient for zakat is you give the money that you have to give zakat because it does not belong to you. You do not own it. You have no right to do anything with it except to give it away. Right? There's no right. You have no right to it. So for you to use it and buy something with it, it wasn't yours to buy something with. You have to get something else and give it to the poor person, or give it to whoever deserves the zakat, which we'll talk about in a minute, inshallah ta'ala. Clear? Yeah? No. The age is unimportant. What's important, especially with the cows and the lamb, is the age of not the lamb, the cows and the camel. The age of the lamb or the camel or the cow that you're giving away. That's important. Because it has to do with growth for the person who's receiving it. So if you give an older camel, then they can't really benefit from it for growth. Yeah? Somebody asked me today, they have to give zakah. Is it okay to buy a car for a poor person and give that car, so they have to give zakah on their money, they have wealth, extra wealth, right? So they want to buy a car for a poor person and give that car away. Will that decrease from their zakah or not? What do you guys think?
Decrease from the zakat, and then like, sorry.
Of the person that's giving. Or of like,
Say that again.
like you're saying decreasing zakah of the person that gave the car?
So is that sufficient to give zakah? No, it's not.
So it's just- yeah, exactly what you said, right?
It's not going to work. Right? They have to, from the same type of wealth that they have to give from that.
Sure, another question. So, one condition is you have to have one full lunar year to give the zakat. So, how are you tracking the timing? Sometimes it's hard to track this one is past 1 year, that one past 6 months. It's hard. Practically, it's hard.
Yeah.
Come on. So he's asking, how do you keep track of how long you've had this amount of cattle, or this amount of animal? How do you keep track? So you start counting when you have the prescribed amount. So say for example, I have 15 lamb, right? And over the course of a year, I increase 5. That's 20. Next year, I have another 10, right? That's 30. So I still don't have to give zakah. Over the course of 10 years, now I have 40. That's when I start counting the year. Okay? I know I own 40. But then I slaughtered 2. So I don't own 40 anymore. But then one of the sheep gave birth, or 2 of the sheep gave birth. Now I have 40 again. Now I start counting. So you start counting when you have 40, that's when you start counting. If it decreases, then you stop counting. Is that clear? واضح ولا مش واضح؟
Yeah, it's kind of lost.
But you know how much you have. You know what you have. Okay? So if you have that amount for a full year, okay, now, so you count, okay, I have 40 or more. And you continue to have 40 or more for the full year. خلاص. Does that make sense? Yeah, and you just have to keep track. The same way you keep track of your money in the bank, you keep track of the animals you have.
But basically what you said was you keep track once you start, like the count starts once you have 40.
Once you have 40.
Then you start.
Right.
But for the money plan, fixing the time. We don't have that issue, right? Time.
Right, it's everything is dated, right?
Yeah, they.
So we can keep records. You have like,
No, I mean, I get like zakat, for example, 15 per month.
yeah.
I didn't track in the numbers there. The money coming out after that. So just next year I will give what I have. If I pass that, it will be solved.
So are you asking about currency? Are you asking in general?
In general.
So basically how zakat works is you look at, do you own the nisab or not? So if you own the nisab or the prescribed amount, if you own it, that's when you start counting. From the beginning of ownership. That's when you start counting the year. If it goes over, that's fine. You're not worried about the over. If it goes under, you stop counting. Until it gets to that nisab again, then you start counting again. But you remember the date when it started. If you get to a year and you still have the nisab, that's when you give zakat. Inshallah. خير جزاك حبيبنا. As for the type of animal that you give away, say for example you're giving away a camel, Are you giving away a cow? Are you giving away sheep? It is impermissible for you to give the worst of your crop. Okay? So for example, you find the skinniest lamb and you give it away. Right? This is impermissible. Haram. Why? Because what can the guy do with it? You're giving it away to him. What is he going to do with the skinny lamb? Likewise, it is impermissible for the person who's collecting zakah to take the best of your wealth. Right? So you have, for example, a skinny sheep, a medium-sized one, and a fat one, right? That eats a lot and mates a lot. So he takes the one that's in the middle. Now, if you want to give away the fat one, then that's fine. That's up to you. It's fine for you to give it away. But for the one who's collecting, they should not take the one who's in the middle, the one that's the best. And this is because we want benefit for the poor people, and we want benefit for the people who have, so that we're not causing harm to anyone. So basically the sheep or the lamb that he's giving away, it's not going to hurt him to give it away. Right? It's not a big deal. That's like someone has $5,000 and they're giving away 20. It's not a big deal. It's not something that's going to hurt them. And we get this from the hadith of Mu'adh radiallahu anhu, when the Prophet ﷺ sent him to Yemen. He said to him, وَإِيَّاكَ وَكَرَائِمَ أَمْوَالِهِمْ وَاتَّقِ دَعْوَةَ الْمَظْلُومِ فَإِنَّهُ لَيْسَ بَيْنَهُ وَبَيْنَ اللَّهِ حِجَابٌ. Beware of the best of their wealth. Right? Don't touch it. And also beware of the dua when a person is being wronged. Because there's nothing between it and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And you also don't give away the sick animal. An animal that is blind in one eye. Right? An animal that has some sort of defect. An animal that is old. That they really can't do anything with it. And so on. Any questions about that? Yeah.
No questions. So I would basically summarize by saying, like, don't be stingy and don't be greedy. Stingy in the one that's giving, don't be greedy.
Right. So one of the benefits of zakah is that you are empowering the people that don't have. But if you're giving them something that's messed up or not, has a defect, like what kind of empowerment? Like what's the point? Right? And at the same time, we don't want the rich to become poor either. Right? So if the result of zakah is rich people become poor, nobody's going to want to give. So there's a balance, right? So everybody benefits. Inshallah ta'ala. Any questions? So there are two types of zakah, zakat al-fitr and zakat al-mal. Zakat al-mal is connected to your wealth. Zakat al-fitr is connected to your physical being. Zakat al-fitr is connected to your physical being. So if you exist, you have to pay zakat al-fitr. However, with zakat al-mal, you have to have the wealth. The wealth is there, you're just giving some of what you already have. It's not a big deal. So zakat al-fitr is also part of zakat, which is a pillar of Islam. And zakat al-fitr is connected to Ramadan. Zakat al-fitr is mandatory upon every Muslim. Right? Mandatory upon every Muslim. That's it. Period. Old, young. Every Muslim who has enough food to eat on the day of Eid. Right? So if you have enough food to eat on the day of Eid, then you have to pay zakat al-fitr. Any questions on that? So even poor people, if they have enough food for that day, they have to pay Zakat al-Fitr. Right. A couple of things. Why do we have to pay Zakat al-Fitr? One, it purifies the person who is fasting because we make mistakes while fasting. So it's to kind of like clean our fast because we're human beings. Another reason is to allow the poor people, or give the poor people a chance to celebrate or to be happy or to enjoy their Eid because they don't want to be starving on Eid, right? If you're starving on Eid, you're not going to enjoy the Eid. And also it's a way of showing that you are grateful for the blessings of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Alright, so what do you give on Zakat al-Fitr? What do you guys think? Zakat al-Fitr, after Ramadan, what do you give? I know you guys have given Zakat al-Fitr. What's the norm? What do you guys do for Zakat al-Fitr? Food. Only. So how do you give food? How do you give it? So you, like for example, give me an example.
Rice.
So you take rice and you take it out with your hand.
No, 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 like a quarter into the salt, like 2 kilo or something. Equation.
So the origin or the default is from when the Prophet ﷺ said, 1 sa' from food, ta'am. 1 sa' from aqid. 1 sa' from dates. 1 sa' from sha'ir. Right? Sa'. This is a measurement. And sa', this measurement, is not weight. It's not a weight measurement. What kind of measurement is it? Volume. It's a volume measurement. Okay, you know the difference between volume and weight? What's the difference? Think about it. What's the difference between volume and weight? So volume is like a liter of water. Volume. Right? If I put this on the scale, it will weigh something different than if it had rice inside. Right? But it's the same volume, but it's different weight. Right. The volume, like how much can you fit in this bottle? Not, I want 1 pound of something. Right? So it's volume. And the volume is, the measurement of volume in Arabic is called al-kayl. Right? So the measurement of volume is sa'. Right? S-A-'ain. Sa'. And it's a prophetic measurement, or it's a Madani measurement. It was a measurement that was used in Medina when they sold and when they bought. So you go to the marketplace and you say to them, I want sa' of lemons, for example. So they take the thing and they fill it up with lemons and then they give it to you. And you pay however much for the sa' of lemons. And I'm just using an example because I just bought some lemons. So that's what came to mind. So a sa', they usually say, to measurements so that we can come close to it, they say it's arba'at amdad, 4 mud. Okay? So this is kaf. Right? This is a handful. Okay? 2 of them, 2 handfuls is called mud. Okay? 2 handfuls is called Mud. And this is approximate. It's not exact, it's approximate. Because there's a mud that is the Nabawi mud. And the Nabawi mud is about this tall. And it's about this wide around. The one hand is called kaf. Oh, not kaf, sorry, hafna. Sorry. Hafna. 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 Ha-fa noon ta. Hafna. H-A-F-N-A. Hafna. Two of them is called mud. And again, it's approximate. Because not everybody's hands are the same. Right? Some people have bear claws, mashallah. Right? Some people have baby hands. So there's a certain measurement from the Prophet ﷺ, it's a prophetic measurement, and it's volume. And it's usually estimated to be about, I think it's 4.5 kilos for one sa', which is about 8 pounds or 9 pounds. So one sa' is 9 pounds, approximately. So if you give away 10 pounds of rice, for example, then that's sufficient. You guys follow? Yeah.
How is it in pounds if it's volume?
You're estimating.
Okay.
So it's volume, right? So how many pounds of rice can you fit into one sa'?
Okay,
So it's approximate. So you go a little bit more so that you can be safe. The Prophet ﷺ said, sa' of this, sa' of that, sa' of that. The scholars, they say you give away sa' from the usual or the regular type of food that the people eat. What kind of food do people eat here? I'm asking. Fast food. Like something that they can cook and something that will last for a long time at home if they kept it at home. Rice. When you put rice, you don't have to worry about it going bad in most cases. What else?
Flour? Flour?
Flour. What else? Lentils, right? Beans, fava beans. Dates, the dry ones. Yeah, dates. What else? Barley, millet. What else? What about some people, they give away cooking oil. Right? Cooking oil. I know in Ann Arbor, what they do is they have like a package, a food package, cereal, and because this stuff doesn't really go bad for a long time. Right? So they put together like a food package. Even evaporated milk. Because aqat is a type of evaporated milk. So aqat is like dry milk, but it's like hard. So you put it in water or whatnot, it kind of turns into milk. All right, so the default is you give away food. The Zakat of Fitr, you give away food. That's what the Prophet ﷺ did, that's what the companions did, together. However, what if the poor and needy don't need food? They have food. Is it permissible to give away the equivalent in money? So for example, 10 pounds of rice costs $15, for example. Can you give away $15 per person? The best practice is to give away food. That's the best practice. The madhab of Abu Hanifa is that it is permissible to give away its equivalent in money. It's permissible. So try to give away food if you're unable, if the people around you in your area are not going to accept food. If you bring them food, they're going to be like, they'll throw it back in your face. Like, what do I need with this? Then, give it to them in money. Give it to them in money. Allahu a'lam. All right. At what time do we give out Zakat al-Fitr? On the Eid. What about before? What about a day before? 2 days before? 3 days before? 4 days before? 1 month before? Huh?
As far as I told, like 3 days.
So the default, or the best way to follow the sunnah, is you give Zakat al-Fitr on the day of Eid before Salat al-Eid. This is why it's sunnah to delay Salat al-Eid, Eid al-Fitr, to delay it. To give people a chance to give away their Zakat al-Fitr. Some of the Sahaba, the likes of Ibn Umar radiallahu anhu, gave Zakat al-Fitr a day before or 2 days before. So if you give Zakat al-Fitr a day before Eid, 2 days before Eid, or on the day of Eid before Salat al-Eid, then you're good. Some scholars say it's permissible to give Zakat al-Fitr all throughout Ramadan. So from the beginning night of Ramadan all the way to Salat al-Eid. Why? Because the poor people, they need it. That's number one. And number two, because the Prophet ﷺ did not specify a beginning time. The only specified beginning time is that it is connected to Fitr. It is connected to Eid. And Eid is connected to Ramadan, so from the beginning of Ramadan. And that's kind of like what we did here during Ramadan when we sent food to Gaza. Okay, we sent food to Gaza from here. I think it was like $20,000 worth. So Zakat al-Fitr, those who paid here, it went to Gaza on the 15th of Ramadan. And that's permissible according to the madhab al-Shafi'i. But best practice, of course, is you give it on the day of, a day before, or 2 days before. Wallahu ta'ala. Any questions? All right, a question that Allam asked me yesterday, and we've finally gotten to it. So Allam, you need to be awake, man. All right, it's a long day, I understand, but this is your question, so I'm answering it now. Who do you give zakat to? Yes, it was your question.
Something to wake up.
There you are. So it's Allah's question, not Allam. What's that?
I said, which question? I said, which question?
Yes, very good question. Who do you give zakat to? Sometimes you give zakat and it doesn't count. Why? Because you gave it to the wrong person. That's like you're playing soccer and you kick the ball really hard and it goes in the net, but it goes into your own net. You know, nice, but wrong direction, buddy.
No dice.
So how do you know it's the wrong direction?
How do you know it's the wrong direction?
This is not the direction.
How do you know it's not the right person? We'll talk about it now, inshallah. In soccer, if it's your goalie, you don't kick it that way. You kick it on the other guy's goal. Mash. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala specified 8 categories of zakah, or people who deserve zakah. 8 categories of people. Surah At-Tawbah, ayah raqam 60. Ayah number 60. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala يقول إنما الصدقات للفقراء والمساكين والعاملين عليها والمؤلفة قلوبهم وفي الرقاب والغارمين وفي سبيل الله وابن السبيل فريضة من الله. 8 categories. والله عليم حكيم. All right. So, the first 2 categories are the categories that are actually poor. The other categories are not necessarily poor. Maybe they are, but it's not necessarily poor. They're not always poor. But the first 2 categories are the ones who are poor. They don't have. And they're fuqara and masakin. Okay? Fuqara, masakin. Now there's a lot of discussion on the difference between fuqara and masakeen, which one has less, which one has more, what's the difference, kada kada, there's a lot of discussion on that. But basically they both don't have. They don't have enough. Some say the fuqara have less than half of what they need. So for example, their budget is $500 a month, they have 200. Right? They have less than half. And as for the masakeen, they have more than half. So their budget is $500 a month, they have 400. They have more than half, but less than what they need. But in a nutshell, they both have less than what they need. Okay, those are the first two categories. Al-fuqara wal-masakeen. Got it? Any questions on those two? No questions. I'm not sure. How do you know someone is poor? In our day and age, there's no way you can really know unless you're like living with that person, and otherwise you really can't know. So you kind of estimate. You can ask, you do a little bit of homework. You can also give to, we'll talk about that in a minute. So fuqara masakeen, that's two. The third is amilina alayha. Al-amilina alayha are the employees that are responsible for collecting zakah money and distributing zakah money. Also those who are responsible for guarding zakah money, so it's not stolen. So anyone that has any responsibility of caring for, collecting, dispensing zakah money, even if they're billionaires. Right? So say for example, a millionaire who is a cashier at Kroger, right? They still get their salary, correct? Yeah, you still pay them their salary because of the work that they're doing. Likewise, those who collect zakah, dispense zakah, care for the zakah money, they also have a stipend. And their stipend is from zakah money. And of course, there needs to be ethics connected to how much this person collects. It needs to be an amount that is equivalent to a person that does this type of work. Right? And you can look on the internet, like how much does an accountant make, right? And whoever's doing the accountant, you give him equivalent to how much people make for accounting. Clear? So that's the third category. Al-amilina alayha. Those who are working on behalf of this zakat money. The fourth category is al-mu'allafati qulubuhum. Yes.
I didn't completely understand this category because the first one we were talking about the
Poor.
which made sense, but this third one,
So who gets the money to the poor people?
like the people that you're saying.
You got to get paid for it. I mean, it's a service. You're going and you're coming back. Unless they're doing it for free, that's a different thing. But not everybody works for free, right? Volunteers don't come by easy, especially sincere volunteers. So it's a job. It's something that needs to be done. It's important. So where do you pay for it? From the zakah money. Yeah. The zakah money covers that. That's the third category. The fourth category is those whose hearts are to be reconciled. Who are they?
Those whose hearts
Are to be reconciled. What does that mean? Non-Muslims who will likely become Muslim if you give them some of this zakah money. New Muslims who are a bit flaky or shaky, not strong on their deen, give them some money to make them want to be part of the deen. Non-Muslims who are not necessarily trying to become Muslim, but if you give them, some type of treat or kindness, you are preventing them from doing you harm. Right? Not talking about bribery, not bribes. However, some sort of gift, some sort of kada, to keep the hearts warm. Right? Those whose hearts are to be reconciled. Okay? Okay, that's the fourth category. How many more categories left? Four more. The fifth is wafir riqab. Wafir riqab are the Muslims who are captive. Okay? You spend zakat money to purchase them from their owners, and once they are purchased from their owners, they are freed. It is also used for those captives who are trying to buy their way out of slavery, and you put that money forth to assist them to buy their way out of slavery. It can possibly also work for people who are incarcerated for crimes that are not necessarily harmful or that serious. And you're assisting them to come out because they'll be of benefit to the society. Right? That's also a form of zakat. And that person has to be Muslim. Alright? That's how many? 5. 3 more. The sixth is al-gharimun. A gharim is a person who's in debt. And he's in debt for something that is reasonable. Right? So, for example, he had to buy a car because he has a large family. And he's paying off the payments, but the car broke down and he's unable to work because his car is not working. So now he's in debt. So you can, from zakat money, you can help him pay off the debt. Another one is someone who went in debt in order to reconcile between two people. Right? You can use from zakat money to pay off that debt. Now, each of these categories, there's a lot of discussion connected to each of them. So we can't really get through everything. We're giving an idea, general idea. Number 7 is the category of fi sabilillah. Originally, the category of fi sabilillah is referring to jihad. Because it costs money to go out and fight. Right? You have family back home that need sustenance. You need sustenance on the road there and on the road back. It's expensive. So fi sabilillah is referring to jihad. This is also extended to those who are fi sabilillah, meaning they are studying deen. Right? So they've left their homes because they want to study Islam. Right? This is also extended to fi sabilillah because with knowledge you fight against falsehood. So this is a form of jihad. This category is also extended in, according to a minority of scholars, and in our day and time, especially in the West, it's been extended to masjids and Islamic schools. Right, the fi sabilillah category. It's been stretched a lot. Okay. Yeah. Do I agree with it? I'm actually writing something on that. Hopefully it's good. So. But it's been stretched a lot. There's just some research that has been made on that and whether or not it's ethical to stretch it the way it's been stretched, but that's our reality right now.
I mean, buying.
I'm sorry, what?
Use it for buying. That's
Buying, maintaining the masajid. Yeah. And even Islamic schools. Maintaining, paying for salaries of Islamic schools. Is it fi sabilillah? Because fi sabilillah originally is jihad. So is the Islamic school jihad, a form of jihad? In a sense, maybe. But in a sense, not really. Is a masjid a form of jihad? In a sense, yeah, maybe. But in a sense, maybe not.
Fighting
Not so
against
much.
God, but not
So one may ask, okay, how do we build a masjid if we're not going to pay for it from zakah? Like, how do we build it?
That's not
Exactly, sadaqah. Anyway, that's a discussion for another day. The 8th category is Ibn as-Sabil, a person who's traveling and ran out of money. Can't get back home. Back home, he's probably a millionaire. But at this present time, he can't get back. So he's Ibn as-Sabil. Alright? Any questions on the 8?
Ibn Sabil should be Muslim.
Muslim. All the categories are Muslim except for al-mu'allafati qulubum. Yeah.
Oh, that's later.
But who is it impermissible to give zakat to? Like, you've scored it in the wrong goal. Right? What's your name, brother? Uthman? Hayakallah. So when do you know you scored it in the wrong goal? You scored it in the wrong goal if you give your zakat money to the rich. Okay? Someone who has, you give them zakat. It is la yajuz. Another category that you do not give zakat to is your parents and your children, even if they're poor. Why? Because you're responsible for providing for them. So if you give them from your zakah, it's as if you gave it to yourself.
Own goal.
Uh-huh.
Own goal, yeah. That's an own goal.
Own goal, right, exactly. As if you gave it to yourself. Yeah? The third is non-believers, non-Muslims who are not mu'allafa. They're not of the ones whose hearts are to be reconciled. So, you know, a random non-Muslim on the street, you don't give them zakah money. There's no hope for them to accept Islam. I mean, not directly at least. Okay?
Sheikh, what about the person who shows interest in Islam? Is it okay?
A person who shows interest in Islam.
You can tell.
If it's likely he'll become Muslim and you feel that this gift would bring them closer towards Islam, then they would be considered mu'allafati qulubum. But mu'allafati qulubum is a category that some scholars have said that it's no longer in existence now. Right? It was obsolete, or it became extinct during the time of Umar radiallahu anhu, because it's no longer a thing. That's why I said each category needs a nice study. Right. Each category. A deep dive, yes.
I'm supposed to be faqir and miskin, right?
I'm sorry, what?
I'm supposed to be faqir and miskin for the first two.
The first two. But the other 6 are not necessarily faqir and miskin.
No, for the mu'allafat qulub.
Al-mu'allafa qulubum don't have to necessarily be miskin. It's not necessary. Yeah. They can also be rich. It's not necessary. The fourth type of people you're not supposed to give zakah is the people of Al-Bayt, family of the Prophet ﷺ. And this is referring to Bani Hashim, the offspring of Hashim, which today are usually the offspring of Ali radiallahu anhu, the offspring of Hussein and Hassan. It's impermissible to give them zakah. The best time to give zakat al-fitr, if you want to give it like at a specific time every year, many people give it in Ramadan.
Is there a certain period
mean, of course, the best time to give in Ramadan is going to be the last 10 nights. Because the ujur are, how would you say, multiplied. Also, the first 10 days of the Hijjah. Right? But you want to make sure that a year hasn't passed. So you don't want to be late in giving the zakat. Yeah. So a question that many people would ask is, which one do we choose to give to? Like, is it better to give to the poor, fuqara masakin? Is it better to give to a person who's in debt? Is it better to give to a person who's traveling? Like, is there a hierarchy? And the quick answer is no, there isn't. Right? Quick answer is no, there isn't.
You can start with a relative.
Relatives have more right to what you have, to your wealth, yes. To your kindness. Your relatives, they have more right to kindness. Now, if your relatives are traveling and they ran out of money, your relatives are poor, your relatives are mu'allafati qulubuhum, it depends. So in terms of, like, do you have to single out one category over the other? Not necessarily. You have to leave it to your judgment. Which one has more right to your zakat money? Now, when it comes to giving your zakat money to a charity organization, usually that's what they do here, to 501c3s, to a charity organization. What you want to do is you want to look at that charity organization and see what their overhead is. Some have less overhead than others. Meaning, what percentage of your money will actually go to the poor people? The other percentage will go to administrative costs, which is al-amilina alayha. Right? One organization that I know that has a low overhead is Rahma, not Rahma, Basma. Sorry. Okay, Basma has a low overhead. Relief, Islamic Relief. I don't know about them, but they're known to be trustworthy, getting the goods to the poor. Islamic Relief. But in terms of having a low overhead, I'm not sure. As for taking your zakat money from the country where you live to another country, it's permissible, because there's nothing in the Quran and Sunnah to specify a certain country or a certain land, as long as it's to one of these 8 categories. However, you have to think about how the poor people or the people in your area have a certain attachment to what you have, if you're wealthy. And when they have that attachment to your wealth and you're not giving them any of it, that envy starts to build up, and hatred. Right? So part of the reasons zakah is mandatory is to kind of bring the hearts together. So when you have and you're giving some of what you have to those who know what you have, they're not so salty about you giving it away to others. Yes, my friend. I'm not sure. I think what I'm really saying is ask.
Yeah.
So the organization that you're going to donate to, ask about their overhead. Right? Find out, so that you know what you're doing. You know who you're giving to. So. Any more questions? And I think we're done with zakah. Congratulations. You're all scholars of zakah now. Hopefully soon, inshallah ta'ala.
So what's the nisab for the zakat al-mal exactly? The nisab of the zakat al-mal.
So, Yeah. So it's gonna be. So you're asking about currency,
Yes.
right?
I mean, the money that you have.
Yeah, currency.
Yes.
Whether it's dollars, whether it's francs, whether it's
Yeah.
British pounds, whether it's Bitcoin. Yeah. So basically, you're going to measure it up to gold or silver. Whichever one is cheaper. So the nisab for silver is 595 grams of silver. And for gold, it's 85 grams of gold. Okay? So whichever is cheaper, that's what you measure it up to. So right now, silver, 595 grams of silver, is about $550. 85 grams of gold is about 6,300 or something like that dollars. So match it up to silver. Okay? And have you owned $550 or more for a year? Okay. So whatever you have, divided by 2.5%, and whatever the number comes out, that's your zakat. And $550. نصاب الفضة. نصاب الفضة. نصاب الذهب 6,000 كذا 6,300 I think it is. Okay? So
we go with the cheapest.
for the benefit of the poor people. Because if you wait till you have 6,000, many people don't have that. So many people won't give zakat. So many poor people won't receive. So go with the lower one. Yeah.
For Zakat of Fitr, you said it's mandatory every Muslim.
All Muslims.
So let's say it's like a child, would the father
Right.
have to pay for them? There's Zakat of Fitr.
Yep. Even a child that's in the womb, who's older than 4 months, pregnant, it is recommended that you give zakat al-fitr on their behalf, not mandatory. Any more questions?
You mentioned about the sa'.
Sa'.
Yes, I heard before. There's like two sa' Madani and the sa' Hanafi. So the sa' Hanafi is bigger than the sa' Madani. So what other Mashayikh say is you can go with the sa' Hanafi, which is bigger, it's more reward.
But what's mandatory is the sa' madani, because that's what the Prophet ﷺ used in terms of mandate. But if someone wants to give extra, marhaba.
It's okay.
إن أحسنتم أحسنتم لأنفسكم. الجزاء والإحسان إلا الإحسان. Yes, my friend. Can you give him money? Majority of scholars say no. You can't. So with organizations, what I usually do is I make sure this organization is going to give out food. So I give them money because they're going to give out food. Right? But if this organization is going to give out money, then I'd rather choose another organization. Zakat al-Fitr. You want to give out money, give out Zakat al-Mal. Now there are organizations here in the US that pass out food. Like I said, in Ann Arbor, we passed out food. I was in Ann Arbor. Okay? Zakat al-Fitr. We had food boxes. It had all kinds of stuff in it. Flour, rice, cereal, cooking oil, beans, lentils, all kinds of stuff.
Who organized this? Is people or person?
Does Muslim Family Services do?
Yeah, that's what I was going to say.
Yeah, ICNA Relief, Muslim Family Services, they provide that, I believe.
2 billion.
You said what?
Well, I don't think it was like 1 billion worth of like food given.
$1 million worth of food? Yeah. So it's, organization, Muslim Family Services, and other different masajid distribute it.
So when they provide this, you have to pay for it, or just
How what?
How it works?
How does it work? So you pay, so for example, you have 3 children, 4 children, and a wife, right? So that's what, 6 for 6 people. I think it's $15 per person, right? 15 times 6 is? Huh? 90. So you pay $90, and they put that in the bank and they distribute on your behalf. So usually they collect it from the beginning of Ramadan, but they distribute it the last 3 days of Ramadan. بارك الله فيكم. جزاكم الله خيرا. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك.